Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome once again to another part of the so of if AU units were added to GBO2, how would we balance them? Today, I'm being accompanied by a rather common co-host at this point, Sertlad and Alter. Well, let's begin with how everyone is doing. Alter, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little less congested than last week, so that's should be a welcome change.
That is good. And how are you doing, Sertlad?
Uh, it's going pretty well.
That is great
My
to hear.
schedule is about to return to its usual, somewhat, to its usual semi-hectic form. So, um, I would lie if I said I am not looking forward to that, because it's always fun to keep myself busy.
Of course, perfectly understandable. Today, we're going to be covering the Double X and the Gundam Turn A for GBO2 and how we'd balance them. Things will be slightly different as we've already checked through the stats of the mobile suits, so that we will skip into the juicy parts as we don't want to take too much of your time. So, let us really quickly begin, shall we? Oh, I have the Turn A up. That it was a mistake. Let's begin with the Turn X. As you can already see, the decided factor for the double X is gonna be a 700 cost general at 4-star rarity, capable to go on both ground and space, 21,000 health, 22 ballistic, 30 beam, 30 fall melee resistance, 30 range strength, 40 melee strength, 135 movement speed, 230 top speed, 85 thruster gauge, and 80 turning speed. The thought process is that the Turn X primarily, the Gundam Double X. I'm not going to leave that down for the rest of the episode.
No, absolutely not.
The Double X was very much capable of staying at range, but at this point, we all know that when it came to charging up its twin satellite laser, it took a bit of a time, I guess you could say, that it had to stay stationary to fire that giant laser. Therefore, we're gonna give it a more melee-oriented approach so that it can be able to stand up to other units. Let's begin with its melee priority. Due to it being a more melee-oriented unit, I'd say that we should give it a level 3 melee priority, even though it's a general.
I think so. Yeah, it's also I wouldn't say a limited kit per se, but it's a fairly basic kit. Like it has a decent array of weapons, but nothing crazy gimmicky. Like the satellite cannon is kind of insane in a vacuum, but like if you're trying to be at all accurate to how it's depicted in the series, then that's not going to be something you can whip out on a dime like the Suzabi's insane torso cannon or similar weapons. Like you'd have to stop and charge that up. So I think, yeah, giving it, because like a 700 unit needs to have some kind of flash, right? Like it needs something to set it apart. Like if you, I keep going back to this example, and I swear to God, it's not on purpose. But the Sananju Stein has a very basic kit that is kind of propelled by the fact that all of its options are incredibly powerful. That's like its thing. That's its quirk. Like everything at 700, every native 700 cost, especially at 4-star, needs a quirk of some kind, I think. Like it needs something that sets it apart from like just having, I don't know, a bread and butter, meat and potatoes kind of kit.
That sounds about right. What are your thoughts on the matter, Sertlade?
Well, I'd say that if they were to add the double X, I think, having it be somewhat decent at melee doesn't sound half bad, given that it has a let's think of it. It has a fairly shall we say bare bones ranged loadout. I mean, you have the satellite cannon, which I'm guessing will, in game, it will probably perform like a mix of the full armor 7th cannon and the cannon on either the Doben Wolf or the Silver Bullet. And of course, the beam rifle, which will probably be, your box standard charging beam rifle with, the Vulcans and the launcher in its torso being, very similar to its usual mobile suit counterparts. So I'd say that, yeah, building it to be able to hold its own in melee range is a fairly decent idea.
That's good to
With
hear.
obviously, yeah, the satellite cannon as its ace in the hole that needs some prep time,
Of course.
just like the full armor 7th cannon, etc., etc.
Well, let's look at the next step. The counters slash the special counter. As we've pretty much established by now, all units will have a special counter of some sort that we're going to be looking into, as I'm expecting them all to be 4 stars. But at least so with thing, as you see right beside the compatibility. So we're looking at the counter and special counter. Let's look really quickly at the counter. I was thinking something like a basic 3-punch melee combo. Imagine like the ones that the gun cannons have, where it's impacted to the body and then 2 hits to the body, and then, if I remember correctly, an uppercut to the head.
Yeah, you could do something like that.
That
Because-
doesn't sound half bad, though. Personally, I'd go with something a little more flashy, since it still has some ranged weapons. So either having it intercept
that
the
is-
enemy with Vulcans, or point
That would be more of
rifle square at
a
his chest and shoot it.
yeah, that would be more of a special counter though.
All right,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Like, wow, it's going to be really hard to make the case that I'm not going back to this well on purpose. But again, this is not just Stein. You have a very basic normal counter, and then the special counter is a little bit more involved. But that's also fairly standard, though. Like, there's a lot of cases of that. Like, the Suzabi would be another example. The Kshatriya, the Suzabi
All of
FF.
them. If you look
Yeah.
at even the things like the even the full armor double Zeta has a 3 strike with its beam saber, and then its special counter is the abdominal beam cannon to the torso, or the unicorn with its high kick, and then it gets a slap with the arm, and then beam magnum to the face. And there
Yeah.
is plenty of units that have unique combos. That's why the special counter is called just that.
Anything with a special counter usually has a very basic, straightforward, like almost forgettable basic combo, and then the special counter is the really over-the-top stuff.
Exactly. So for a special counter, there is a good variety that we could do. It could be a satellite cannon straight to, the point in the face, double point blank, but that would be a bit too common. We've seen it way too often happen with especially support types, where you'll see just a point blank hit with the ranged weapons. So my thoughts were something of the following: the G hammer that will pretty much the Gundam Double X had a hit directly into the torso with the hyper hammer to knock people away.
Possibly. I was thinking it might be cool to do like, okay, just to make sure I'm not losing my mind here. The Gundam X's twin beam sword was separate from the 2 individual beam sabers it had, right? It's not like the Freedom or the Justice where it's where it combines them. Like the
Yeah, they were separate.
Okay, so I'm all right. I'm not going senile. That's promising.
If I remember
uh,
correctly, though, it did have a twin beam sword, so there is also that.
Yep.
So you might be remembering both.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that if I remember correctly, it has a twin beam sword, and then separately it has 2 like hyper beam sabers, like double Zeta style. So what I was
Yep.
thinking is maybe you whip out the hyper beam swords and do some crazy stuff with that, and then you bust out the twin beam sword, or vice versa, or just kind of to emphasize like, look at me, I have both of these things. Because in a lot of cases of a twin beam sword like that, it's just one weapon that can split, like the beam lancer on the Regalgu and similar units.
Well, I have an idea.
Mhm.
So how about we make the standard counter something like a shield bash, because we hadn't had a lot of those in the game, like at all. And when the shield is destroyed, we can, get to the special counter. Maybe, I don't know.
We don't really
It
have a
came to
unit that
mind.
can do that yet, so that would be honestly up to the devs. We're working with what we have right now, so we're gonna be pretty much keeping it at a relatively, samey level, sadly, until the devs prove us that there is a lot more that we can do with these.
Yeah, I think it's best to
Fair enough.
speculate within the confines of existing systems.
Yep. So that's why, for an example, with the God Gundam, the hyper mode is more of a biosensor, and the
Yeah.
Wing Zero system is more of a ping system, like what we've seen with things like the Metal Spider and the recon
Isaac,
units.
Blossom,
Yeah.
things of that sort.
So my suggestion would be either a multi melee strike with a dual beam sabers, or
Yep.
single beam saber and finishing into whipping it the enemy with a G hammer.
That could be cool too. I mean, we haven't seen the G Hammer or any of its kind of adjacent weapons used in a counter before, so it's like, why not?
Sounds about right. That could work.
This will require to be a bit longer. All right. So let's look really quickly to the part slots. Once again, we're looking at a unit that is very capable in both range and melee, but we're going to emphasize it a lot more in melee rather than range.
Yeah.
How do you build such a thing? Well, I was thinking something like the Silver Bullet, where you give it a decent heft of close range slots, more medium range and less long range slots.
I think that makes sense.
So I'd say something like,
I agree.
let's just say 19 close range slots, 20 medium, and I'd say like 14.
Yeah, 14 or 15. Look, the other thing is like the range strength and the melee strength aren't super front loaded, which I think is good because then you need to actually invest part slots to get those things. Like
Of
I
course.
probably repeat myself on this a little too much, but it's like if you give it like insane melee strength out of the gate, people just put like force cooling system in there, and it's like, okay, when I have something that kills you if it touches you, and also just has insane mobility, like just can roll and counter and do all this stuff and just keep going.
Yep.
That is pretty accurate. Now, if I remember correctly, the Buster Rifle did not have an EPAC as far as I remember. So we're gonna have it. So we're gonna start off with this Buster Rifle, which is still funny because it's called the Buster Rifle. So I'm gonna call it the DX Buster Rifle to avoid the confusion with the twin Buster Rifles of the Wing Zero, right?
That makes
Alright.
sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
I guess if you wanted to be super pedantic, and I don't particularly care enough, but just to be thorough, you could say the wings is just, well, this is the twin Buster Rifle, then this one's the Buster Rifle, but like you could do both, really, just
We did
for
that.
the sake of posterity. Oh, well, there you go. But yeah, like, because what if you add another Buster Rifle down the road? Like, I know there's definitely, I can't recall one off the top of my head immediately, but well, wait, the Airmaster had a Buster Rifle, didn't it?
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think it's been on other AUs as well. So yeah, I mean, there could definitely be a weapon down the road that's just called Buster Rifle. So maybe it's better to future-proof this now, you know?
Of
Yep.
course.
So
Also-
I like the DX Buster Rifle suggestion.
Also,
Proceed,
now that I think about it, we should probably, give it the Airmaster Burst Buster Rifle as well as, kind of an optional, primary.
I'd say
'cause,
keep that in case they do add the Air Master, because that would mean that the Air
Of
Master
course,
will have
I mean,
nothing.
Yeah.
Because, if you recall, there's been a lot of additions to GBO where, oh look, this mobile suit has used this weapon in this OVA. How about we add that to the game? And they just have fun with it, and that's how we get a lot of the various alternate primary weapons. For example, the the resale rifle on the A1 because it had that in the Unicorn OVA,
Of
which
course.
that's
Now,
nice.
the question is, the Buster Rifle did not show to have any Tsarad skills. So my thoughts were either we make it a normal instant rifle, or if we're gonna add a Tsarad shot, we should do it something like the Hainu, where the Tsarad shot becomes like a multi-shot. So I was gonna say, give it an average of 2500 power, so a little below the average, right? And keep its hit rate at 55. Actually, no, that's cooldown. So cooldown is gonna be 2.5 seconds, the classic. But the hit rate is what I'm talking at is 55%, right?
Alright.
Yeah.
And the range
Yeah, I
is gonna
can see
be
that.
classic 400. And the stagger or stun buildup is gonna be an insta stun.
Yeah, I like that idea better because
Yep.
I don't think we ever saw it really rapid fire, right? Like it's kind of depicted in the same way as the Wing Zero's Buster Rifle, where it's like it seems to be relatively low fire rate, just like almost more like the Beam Magnum. It's sort of along similar lines.
Mhm.
Just a big stupid beam rifle.
Now, we're gonna have the DX Hyper Beam Saber for its, saber, and we're gonna do the classic 2900 General, 2.5 seconds. Nothing special here, right?
Yeah, pretty standard.
But right off the bat, so we're gonna continue on with just adding the head-mounted Vulcans. It's already a pretty good kit, so I wouldn't say giving it the same Vulcans that it had, that are like, let's just say the Sinanju which is your beloved, has.
Yes.
I mean, you said it, not me. I mean, this guy brought it up. Had nothing to do with it this time. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's. I feel like that's the. That's kind of the ceiling for just insanely, obnoxiously stupid Vulcans, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
So
yeah,
I'd
I
say-
agree. Like with a kit like this, you don't want Vulcans that are that insane.
So I'd say we're gonna lower it a bit. We're gonna give it 120 power, lower than most. We're gonna give it obviously 0 cooldown. We're gonna give it 60 rounds, and we're gonna give it 200 range because it doesn't have that many ranged weapons.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think the
Now-
suppression should be like okay, just okay.
I'd say yeah. I'd say that if we're gonna do it, I'd say like 4% build up stuff.
Yeah, that
Alright.
looks right to my eye.
Now
So,
the sub weapon next, I cannot say its actual name because YouTube is not gonna be very happy with me, so I'm gonna call it the
Oh,
chest
come on.
launcher.
the chest.
I mean, chest multi-launcher is a term we've seen in like a million different places in this franchise. So I feel like if you called it that, people would just go, "Oh, okay, I know what that is. I know what that does."
So we've seen the chest launcher have a variety of shots, but the most common one is that it was firing ballistic rounds, right?
Yeah.
So we could make it like a heavy-duty chest Vulcans, kind of like what we talked about with the Wing Zero, where it's kind of like the Gym Guard custom chest Vulcans, is my guess.
Yeah, even a little bit like the Rigazit or something.
So I'd say 200 power, 0 cooldown, 40, because it fire, if you remember, it has 4 launchers on the chest. Actually, I should probably do this times 4, because it did say that it had 4. So what I'm gonna do is
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it 80 rounds. I'm gonna give it actually lower than expected power at 80, because you're firing 4 rounds at the same time. The range is gonna be 350, right? So it's gonna be a bit. It's gonna be pretty much your. I wouldn't say 350 actually. We're gonna give it a 250 range.
What about like 300? Like just to sort of set it apart just a little bit.
Fair enough. 300.
Yeah, because 350 is maybe like that's like almost rifle range. That could be a little silly, but 300 sounds pretty reasonable.
And I'd say
Yep.
we're gonna give it a similar build-up stun to the Vulcans, but that's because you're firing a large spray of constant barrage. So
Okay.
we're giving it a more of a. You have 2 options to build up stun already. One is pretty much the good old classic. The other is you're gonna be your bread and butter. Now, If you're gonna be able to move and shoot it or not, we'll figure that out as we go. Let's see.
Oh, I was just gonna say the other thing is that I feel like if you have two Vulcans that build up stagger really well, it's a good thing that this thing doesn't really have any other weapons that are especially good for suppressive fire. Because, like, let's say you had a beam rifle that was like, I don't know, you're like the DJCA or something, where 2-shot stagger. You land 1 shot, you switch to either of these things, hose them down. Like that would be kind of scary. So it's good that it just has 2 weapons that are just pretty good at it.
Now, I'm gonna do something.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna not give it a shield, but I'm gonna give it right here a twin satellite cannon. Let me spell satellite. My brain is not working.
SATELLITE.
Okay, yeah, I was double checking as well.
That's right, isn't it? It's not. I am
it-
very sleep deprived, so let's. All right, thanks Google. I was
here.
right.
Both are right, apparently.
I was
Either
gonna
way.
die of embarrassment if I had that wrong.
So,
We're gonna leave the twin satellite cannon here for now. The reason why is because the twin satellite cannons are gonna be our final weapon rather than giving it a shield, because the unit is gonna be already pretty agile. So we're gonna have 3 more slots for 3 more melee weapons.
3 more melee weapons?
Because if you remember, it had also the double beam sabers, which we've seen often, the twin beam saber, the beam javelin, and the Z hammer. Now,
Wait, it had a beam javelin? I don't remember it ever using that.
I mean,
yeah,
it was in the hangar, but yeah, I do not recall the thing being in action.
It was used mostly in the video games, such as Extreme Versus.
Okay, I haven't seen Gundam X in a hot minute, but I definitely don't remember him using a. Because I'd have been like, oh my god, the beam javelin, we never see those anymore.
So the question
I mean,
is,
I think I saw it once, but no, I'd probably have to yeah, rewatch.
now the question is, do we give it the twin beam sword, a beam javelin, and a Z hammer, or do we give it the twin beam sword, double beam sabers, and a beam javelin?
How about we give it the twin beam swords and have the beam javelin and the G hammer as basically optional melee weapons? If that makes any sense?
The problem is that it would give too many options for gacha.
Yeah, I
But
kind
I
of like
mean,
the idea
if
of
we're making
the.
Fairly cheap DP store thing.
They won't do that. I doubt they're gonna do that. They haven't done it yet.
Yeah. Gotcha weapons are always very coveted when they're released.
Oof.
So
I
my personal opinion would be to give it a variety. It would be twin beam sword, beam javelin, and Z hammer.
Yeah, they could maybe do that. I was thinking if they do have the G hammer, it should probably be like it can't be like the Gundam hammer because that's that in a sub weapon is just positively
No.
asinine. But yeah, I think it being more like a heavy stagger whip would be okay.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
So I'm naming all of these DX because I've seen it very often that it has been happening with GBO2 and Thunderbolt weapons. We don't talk about that. So
That's true.
So the twin beam javelin, right? I was thinking of giving it something like the Sinanju's beam Najinara in terms of melee. So about 2900, just like its counterpart, and 2.5 seconds again the cooldown. Now, the beam javelin, that's a weapon that we haven't seen for a while. So I'd say make it be the bread and butter, but also make it be the one that you have to worry about when you can use the most. So give it like 3,500, but give it a cooldown of 3 seconds, which is actually 3.5 to make it a bit more fun. Correct?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it should definitely be a weapon that is very punishing when used wrong.
And finally, the DXG hammer is gonna be used as how you said earlier. I don't remember who you to suggest it, but kind of like the Garcia's hammer, where you kind of shoot it forwards, kind of like you do forwards and forwards, and it heavy staggers people. So I wouldn't give it too much power, either you believe it or not, for that matter.
No, I wouldn't either. If it
Actually,
it's
Yeah.
a heavy stagger whip, like that could do like 0 damage, and you would still covet that thing.
And if you notice 2400 power, which is higher than many whips, but lower than whips like the Hambrabis at the level 3, right? And 5-second cooldown, which is about the average for heavy stagger whip. And here we reach the twin satellite cannons. Now this is gonna be where the fun begins. No pun intended, of course. Now, the twin satellite cannons, the way that I had thought it would work, would be kind of like a combination between the high mega cannon of the double Zeta and the full arm or 7th beam cannon. What do I mean by that? Stop to charge, stop to shoot, but when you hit enemies, heavy stagger them as well while doing a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So I'd say
My
base
only-
damage- Proceed.
I was gonna say my only concern would be like I feel like stop to charge weapons at 700. That's like probably the cost range that's like the least conducive to that because it's so insane. Like there's so much going on at 700. There's stuff flying everywhere at all times. So it's like I wonder is it hard to make that appealing enough?
The reason why it will be pretty appealing to land it is because, again, heavy stagger on impact, right?
Right.
And if you cut someone, you get 8 hits, making it one of the highest hit ratio, meaning that you can get about 16,000 damage if you land all of it on a fellow general that doesn't have its resistance up. So imagine on a raid.
Yeah, that's true.
One hit from
What would
that?
the charge time be though?
I'd say 8 seconds. Higher than most. But, you know.
8 seconds.
I think if the range is sufficiently long, that could be fine.
Oh,
Probably
yeah,
more
I'd
so
agree
on
with
some maps than others, but yeah.
that.
I'd give it a slightly longer focus time.
Understandable.
Because
Maybe
I believe it would, or better yet, I believe it should be somewhere between the beam launcher of the Silver Bullet and the cannon on the full armor 7th. So I'd say 12 seconds.
here's the thing, right? We're looking at 700 still. That's the thing that
Yeah.
you always need to remember.
Oh yeah, that's
The
true.
silver bullet's launcher is 8 seconds, yes. But if you look at, let's say, the full armor double Zeta's head beam cannon, 6.5, and the abdominal is 7 seconds. The enhanced double Zeta's beam launcher is 6.5 seconds. So you're already pushing it on the higher point of all of the charge weapons in comparison to 650s.
Yeah,
because you're
fair
gonna be-
enough.
You're falling into the 650 area. The only other unit that has a very long charge, well, I say very long charge, it would be the Kshatriya, which it says the mega particle cannons have 4 seconds, and it's a heavy stagger mega particle cannons on the binders have 3.5 seconds. So already
Yeah,
we're
I think
falling on the longer side.
Oh yeah, so fair enough.
I feel like
No,
anything
like,
over 8 seconds, you'll just
like,
never see it used.
Exactly. Especially since you have to stop to fire it and stop to charge it overall.
That's the main reason, yeah.
So let's have a look really quickly at the skills. So we're gonna give the basics right off the bat, where we don't really need to explain anything, right? So high performance balancer, level 1.
Yeah.
Let me prolong this. There we go. We should give it a dodge roll at least. So we are gonna give it the emergency evasion system level 2, not a level 3.
Yeah, I think 1 or 2. 3 would be pushing it for the kit that this thing has. Like that's actually it's it's a more loaded kit than I expected it to be. So I think if you go too heavy on the skills, it's just kind of nuts.
We've seen it fly plenty of times, so you get the idea. We've seen it go in space.
Yep.
Plenty of times and fought really well in space. Now, one thing that I will always say, maneuver armor at least level 1 in the 700s. At this point, it has become a necessity. Force injector, right? Nothing too special. Level 3. We're not going to do level 4 like a few other units. I'm totally not looking at the likes of the high new Nightingales, Sinanji, and the rest, right?
Yeah.
Melee combo controller, level 1 again. So many melee weapons, might as well be able to hit them multiple times with it.
And I think being able to 3 combo with that many melee weapons would probably be a little overkill, I think.
High performance counter program, level 2, so that it has the counter available at the level at 50% health, so that it can benefit some of it. Let's do a special back add-on buffer for its satellite cannon.
Yeah, that was another thing, like, that's another reason you really need maneuver armor, I think, at 700, is that on top of it just being 700 to begin with, you're also playing something that's kind of bulky. So it's like, if you don't have maneuver armor, God help you, you kind of have the Ribawu problem. And that has maneuver armor, but it's still just, like, not enough because it's such a broad frame that it's just really easy to abuse.
Of course. Now, my other thought would be the flash system, which you may be thinking, how do you implement that? You know, if you remember, which allowed you to control the bit mobile suits, right?
Ah, yeah.
Now,
Yeah, how would you implement that?
instead of adding it, funnels, pretty much the flash system was pretty much described as a psychomu system. So I was thinking, with the flash system, right, level 1 obviously, we're gonna give it plus 2 mobility, plus 2 attack. So I'm gonna give it a plus 10 to movement speed, plus 10 to top speed, or HSM, and I'm gonna give it a plus 20 to melee strength, plus 10 to range strength, so that we won't give it too much range strength, because that satellite cannons will be absurd otherwise. And finally, about 40% less thruster usage.
Yeah, we've seen similar buffs before.
So we're doing this so that we won't obviously overdo it. Let me really quickly put it in a parenthesis. So it's more of a power-up, not as insane as you'd see being able to suddenly control bits out of anywhere. So we'll do it at, you know what? We'll do it at 50% health.
That's probably okay.
I
Yep.
forgot an edge.
Yeah,
It's
like...
a pretty simple thing.
Though, I think I may have another idea.
Hmm?
Since the flash system is, it relates to controlling other smaller units, we could make that thing a team buff.
So these buffs like to all allies.
Within a certain radius, yes.
That
I know.
actually
I'd still have to think,
I think it'd be kind of
more
overkill,
about
to
it.
be
But,
honest.
yeah, fair enough.
What if you do? What if it becomes a team buff for only to units within 100 meters?
Maybe. I mean, I feel like it kind of doesn't really fit with the theme of what it actually did, though, because it's like when you imagine like the bit system, you just imagine it essentially like. Obviously, the one-to-one representation of that would be to have it actually summon additional mobile suits, but then you have issues of like, even if we assume the engine is totally okay with that, You have like goofy things with collision, for instance. Like your teammates, you have two more mobile suits there that your teammates can be bumping into or getting hit by, and things like that. So it's like I don't think you can do that. But then I also feel like the whole like AOE buff thing is just sort of
Yeah, fair
grouping
enough.
it in with things that we've seen other mobile suits do. It's like I also feel like this just doesn't really need the help. Like this is already such a solid. It's a solid man for 700.
Now, I'm gonna give it a few more skills. The fall prevention system, which, in case you don't know, it pretty much is like a discount assault booster, where it doesn't give you quick boost or anything like that, but every time you fall, like you jump off something, you don't get instant out of the air, but build up still can knock you down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a glide structure because, let's be honest, it looks like it can glide.
It does tactically have wings.
Exactly. And I'm gonna give it also something that might surprise you, but a high-performance radar to fully utilize its satellite cannon.
Satellite cannon? Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I feel like high performance radar is one of those things you can also like be fairly liberal with because it's never gonna be something that just like makes a mobile suit broken on its own. It's not like giving it like insane force injectors or like maneuver armor, damage control type stuff.
We have 14 skills right now. We should give it 2 more skills so that it will make it. Actually, I do have a skill which is not really that strong unless you think about it too far. Counter boost. Counter boost, if you remember, is a very strong skill because it lets you charge up your weapons a lot faster, and it will work well in tangent with only one charge weapon.
That's true, yeah.
Obviously, the damage buff and everything along the way is gonna be nice, but that's about it. And one final skill that we could give it. What could we give it so that we could make it a bit more interesting? I guess you could say.
I don't know if it's interesting and it also might be overkill, but power accelerator comes to mind. I don't know if maybe that's
Fair,
overdoing it.
fair enough. With the amount of melee weapons, you'd want to have power accelerator. So I'm gonna give it only a power accelerator level 1.
Yeah, that's probably for the best. Like I was thinking of level 2, but I was like maybe that's like just a little over the top.
That would
Yeah,
be, I think, a
power
bit
accelerator would be some Epion material, honestly.
too much. And this covers pretty much the Gundam Double X. It looks like a decked out melee unit, honestly, with some really strong ranged weapons, and we kept the ranged weapons to a semi-minimum without making them too absurd. The chest multi-launcher ×4 is going to be an interesting thing to see on the battlefield, but I think with the amount of melee that has in it being all 2 melee swings, is going to make it feel a lot more raid-like, but it will very often surprise other raids. I think that it will rival some raids like obviously the Sinanju Stein, and even the Bunsen before the Bunsen reaches NTD when it comes to melee. Up
Still
next,
one of the cooler AU Gundam designs, I think. The double X.
oh, I agree. It
Like
looks
as
absolutely
far as the
astonishing.
like yeah, as far as like the flagship designs go, it's kind of a Gundam Mark II on steroids.
That's fair. Up next, I think a lot of people expected this. Sorry, proceed, Sertler.
Just, going to say that I'm heavily biased towards grunts and grunt units in general. So, as you were talking about, how it is the coolest AU design so far. I was like, no, I will not bring up the drag called the climate type. I will not bring up the snowboarding robot.
You already did, so.
I just mean
Oh
as far as
my.
the flagship designs, like the things that people see as like the poster child of their
Of
given
course.
series, like the double X, the Exia, and the double O, and so on.
Up next, I accidentally leaked it earlier, but we have the Turn A Gundam. Already, I think a lot of people are very excited over the concept of the Turn A Gundam being added, as many people very often would try to argue that it is technically UC, so they want to see their favorite unit in the game bodily. We're gonna look at its HP and all of its stats really quickly. We're gonna just gloss over them, and then we're gonna look at the rest. 19,000 health, 24 ballistic beam resistance, 36 melee resistance, 35 melee and range strength, 140 movement speed, 230 top speed, 85 thruster gauge, 82 turning speed. Already, it's a bit squeezier than most, but the reason why is that we're going to try to implement as many things as possible, including the nanomachine repair. I already had a thought which I will more than happily share with my two co-hosts right now. So let's talk about
It's
melee
definitely
priority.
crossed my mind.
Let's talk about the melee priority. Already, I think medium.
Yeah.
A
I think
melee
you could,
priority of 2, yep.
I think you can maybe get away with level 3 depending on how it lines up, but maybe it's better to start with just 2 to be safe.
Exactly, because we already see how the double X turned out to be, already, to put it lightly. So, counter and special counter. Well, the counter, honestly, I was thinking to be something non-flashy, which would be, just either a high kick or a ground slam, like the good old Granddaddy Gundam, where he picks them up and slams them down on their spine. What do
I
you
mean,
think?
I've always considered the turn A to be kind of like the end game Granddaddy Gundam. Like it's, I mean, I feel like you can like objectively make a case for that. Like it is a very similar design functionally, so I think having that kind of callback to it is tasteful. I think that'd be a good way to go.
Yeah. And for the special counter, I thought we could do something a little bit more on the funny side. As you probably remember, at one point during the series, the turn A's Gundam came off. What if you use it as a throwing ball and then catch it and pick it up again?
Which one? Oh yeah, you mean the head?
Yes.
Oh, that would be goofy as fuck, but fairly funny.
I mean, they definitely like to kind of meme with stuff like that, like the Dolmel having the good old M Bison slide, just because it had that in X Review back in the day. So it's like, yeah, I could see them getting away with something like that. And it's 700, so it's like that's where you get a little bit more absurd with the animations and such.
There we go. Nothing too special. So for a close, medium, and long range, I thought again to follow the good old Granddaddy style stats. So I was thinking maybe give it almost across the board similar levels of slots. So let's just say give it like a 19 across the board, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think in terms of design aesthetic, you literally just make this the 700 Granddaddy Gundam. Just Granddaddy Gundam on steroids. Like, I feel like you make this for the people that wish there was a Granddaddy Gundam at 700. If you're one of those people, please stop watching this video. But I'm kidding, I think.
I'm kidding, I think.
I think. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I know, obviously, like, okay, all shit posting aside, the Granddaddy Gundam is very popular, and I'm sure at least some of that is because of the combination of, like, Bazooka / Super Napalm and the insanely broken Gundam Hammer, but I feel like it's not all that. Like, I'm sure there's people that just really like how it feels, how it plays, they like the legacy. I mean, RX-78 model kits move pretty steadily, so it's like, there's definitely people that just like it for what it is, and I feel like the concept of a 700 Granddaddy Gundam would appeal to a lot of those people.
Of course. Now, this will probably catch you off guard, but I was aiming to give it to give the turn A more similar to the Digest CA's rifle.
Oh no.
Now, hear me out. It's not going to be a heavy stagger,
Okay, that's fair.
because if it was a heavy stagger with everything that this unit is going to be getting, I think that we're going to know the meta very quickly and very effectively. So I'm going
And
to give
dog,
it.
I heard you like heavy staggers.
So I'm going to give it a total of 1,500 power. If I remember correctly, that's... Wait, is that the same as the Digest CA? Because... Oh no, it's slightly lower. That's what I want. I'm going to give it a cooldown of 0.8 seconds. Oh. It's not going to have a heat... Well, we've not really seen it ever have heat rate. We've seen it kind of shoot constantly, because it is the turn A. But because we want balancing, I'm gonna give it slightly more ammo than the Digest CA, and I'm gonna give it a bit more range than the Digest CA, but also a longer cooldown than the Digest CA. The build-up stun is gonna be 45%, so you need 3 shots regardless to break maneuver armor and stun effectively. But the charge shot is insta-stun.
In fairness, I don't know if we ever got a verdict on whether the turn A's rifle is like EPAC or generator powered. Like, I guess we never saw it use EPACs, but it's still kind of dealer's choice, I think, if they don't explicitly tell you one or the other.
Exactly. So
So you can
honestly,
kind of go either way with it.
that's why I'm going with EPAC, because I think reloadables are a lot more effective in some cases. Because I don't want to give it on accident, like, what is it, like 15% hit rate, and people just fast fire it like there's no tomorrow, because cooldown. So you get the idea.
Yeah, ammo-based beam weapons definitely favor more aggressive play because it's like you almost feel incentivized to be more conservative and not overheat when you're tethered to a heat rate. Whereas if it's on the clip, you're just like, you just gun it. It's kind of
Exactly.
All right.
just pump and dump.
I think I have an idea when it comes to the beam rifle.
Mhm.
Because I mean, there's multiple ways we can go about it. We can make it a somewhat standard charging beam rifle, which has a somewhat heavy heat rate to the point where you can get like 2 or 3 shots before overheating. Or we could make it an ammo-based beam rifle with very weak suppression on standard shots, but still decent damage. With, of course, suppression on charge shots, so you could, have it either fast fire the 3 shots or charge the individual ones to stun. Maybe I don't know. I'm just mainly spitballing.
Sartler, I don't mean to be rude, but weren't you paying attention?
Oh, sorry. I was.
You're fine. What pretty much we're talking about was that the turn A beam rifle is gonna be one that it requires 3 shots to stun, plus charge shot. I thought instant, but I added a little bit of something if you noticed, Alter, which is the piercing.
Yeah,
Because
that
I
makes
thought
sense.
Yep.
give it a little bit something to be more incentive to not instant, but you wanna do a little bit more. Now, I didn't want to give it multiple melee weapons way too hard and like the double X, so I decided that I'm gonna give it a beam saber ×2. Nothing too
Yeah.
extreme, just something very straightforward, something that will allow you to wield both beam sabers, and you can have like the backswing be the spin attack with both hands, if you remember. So I was gonna give it even to make it a bit different, the 2100 power and a 2-second cooldown, making it a bit quicker than most other units in how quickly you can, switch between the melee attacks.
Well, and
Now,
also as we referenced with the Sanaju Stein, when the kit's more basic and more limited, you can kind of embellish a bit more with the actual numbers on the weapons.
yep. Up next, this part is gonna make Alter happy because of him enjoying a bit too much the domes. The abdomen beam cannon.
I mean, I only really played the Trophin, but continue.
Since we don't have Vulcans for the turn A, I was gonna say that it's gonna be kind of like a shotgun, kind of similarly to how the.
How does this sound?
Hmm?
Kinda in the vein as Zisa's beam cannons
I
work.
was thinking more of the Sazabi and the Sazabi FF, because those
Yeah.
can shoot them while boosting as well.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, it could work.
So
You probably
I'm
don't
gonna
want the
give it-
same range, though, right?
Well, the range is not that high. 250. It might feel high, at least for the Sazabi, but You kind of want to have at least a suppression stun that you can use while boosting with such a unit, let's say. So I'd say about lower at 1250 because it has 2 abdominal beam cannons. The cooldown is going to be 8 seconds, just in case you somehow manage to not fire the second shot. The hit rate is going to be 95% so that you cannot get 2 shots even if you cool down. I'll make the range to 50. No focus. And the build-up stun is going to be 80% per shot for build-up. Actually, no. 80 would be a bit too high still, wouldn't it? So I'm going to make it 65% per shot. So you can break at least the basic maneuver armor.
Yeah, I think it's fine if it does just that. Do you know what the range on the MPZZ's chest beam shotgun thing is? I forget the exact name for it.
I can look at it right now. It's the chest beam launcher.
That's what it's called.
Double Zeta mass production type. It's 200. It's slightly less than the Sazabi.
Okay. I almost... My gut tells me, like, that kind of range for this weapon on this thing would probably be more reasonable, I guess, but maybe I might be underselling it, in fairness. Maybe I'm being a little too conservative with that.
Let's look at the whole kit before we continue. Plus, if it fires 2 shots that are 65% per shot rather than an outright shotgun, which is what I'm referring to here, because it's 65% per shot and it fires 2 shots because, 95% hit rate, you shoot both.
That's
You get
true,
the-
yeah.
So, also we should probably have the... Yeah, actually the cooldown, I just realized I thought of... don't mind me, I just realized I thought of focus rather than actual cooldown on this shot. Well, actually, no, that's... I just realized, did I forget? I probably have forgot the reload. I forgot the reload on all of this. Well, that is embarrassing.
Mistakes
Don't
were
mind
made.
Don't mind me. So I'm gonna give this 15 seconds. Nothing. I'm gonna give this 10 seconds. Actually, no, I have to give this one 10 seconds, both of them 10 seconds. And I'm gonna give this 120 seconds of it. Actually, no, I'm gonna give it just the 90 seconds that I had here on the cooldown. So, 90 seconds. All right, the crisis averted for now because we have to do this still.
Okay, it was there the whole time.
Yes, it was perfectly ready for that. For this, because it's 10 rounds, it's a lot of pew pews, right? Which I know that you like your pew pews, Alter, but we're gonna have to dial it back a bit. All right, we're gonna give it a 15-second one.
I think that's reasonable for anything that you can even somewhat compare to the DJCA's absolutely insane beam rifle. It's probably okay to be. I mean, isn't that the exact reload of the DJCA's rifles? 15 seconds.
Is it? Oh, I might just stop it into 16 just because of the extra rounds. Actually, nope, that you did not see.
If you get 8 shots at, I think it's 15.
So I'm gonna give it
I'm
18.
almost positive. Yeah, I think that's maybe.
The abdominal beam cannon, I'm gonna give it 250. Sorry, 25 to 50. Can you imagine? And I'm gonna give the 8-second cooldown. Now we have the chest multi-purpose silo. Now this is gonna be where I'm gonna give 2 variants. One is gonna be normal missiles, kind of imagine the Kapul actually is a good explanation.
See, that's how topical. You pick something that's already in the game, but also in Turn A Gundam, like the series.
In a certain iteration, yes. Honestly, I agree. However, I think I'd turn down the projectile size a little bit because it's not
Well, obviously,
necessarily at this. Yeah.
I'm not
If-
gonna make it. I don't think that we should make them as large as the Capol's missiles. So I'm gonna give it, I'm gonna give it like a hefty damage because we have a small amount of those. I'm gonna give it a 750, 0
Alright.
cooldown. I'm gonna give it 10 rounds, right? Nothing too intense. I'm gonna give it a reload of 10 seconds, kind of like your Vulcans. I'm gonna give it 300 range, and I'm gonna give it 20%, no, 15% build-up stun per missile.
Now the question
So-
is, are we going to allow this to be fired while boosting?
I mean, we already have the abdominal beam cannon of being fired while boosting.
That's true.
Unless we want to remove the abdominal beam cannon from shooting while boosting and just replace it with the chest missile.
Honestly, I would.
Yeah, I
Fair
actually kind of like that better now that I think about it. I guess
All
also if
right.
you think about it, if you're gonna have the multi-purpose silo, like the Tournay doesn't have head Vulcans, right? I'm not
Yeah.
crazy for. Okay, yeah. So it didn't have head Vulcans, so I guess you could have it fire. It could fire Vulcans from the chest weapon, the chest multi-launcher, whatever the hell, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that
And-
could just be your head Vulcans functionally. Is that?
And a guaranteed, other version, or we could do Incendiary, your choice. Flash or Incendiary, so free stun or a burn damage over time.
I mean, I kind of err on the side of liking the more straightforward weapons, like just the basic Vulcans. But I know people like the incendiary weapons, so I can kind of see it. Plus, you do have the. I mean, I guess the only real consideration, like function-wise, is that incendiary weapons, because they have that like damage over time, or they keep ticking, would help you kind of keep your suppression refreshed.
That's pretty much the idea.
Yeah. So I
And-
guess, I mean, as long as that would be fine, you could just do incendiary, yeah.
I'm gonna do 1,000. Now you're gonna understand why. 4 seconds, and it's gonna have only 3 shots. The reload is gonna be 24 seconds, and the range is gonna be again another 300 range weapon, and we're gonna do 500 damage times 4.
That's probably okay.
So you get a total of 3,000 per incendiary missile that you fire, and you have 3 that have a long reload of 24 seconds. So imagine it kind of like a grenade, kind of like the Conroy Gigant's grenade in a way, the fire nut grenade.
I winced a little when you mentioned the Jag and CH.
And
God.
finally, for the last melee weapon, it's gonna be the Turn AG Hammer, which I'm tempted to have it more like the Akkai's whips rather than the
You mean the
Rather-
Ego guys?
sorry, Agugai. Yeah, the Agugai's whips.
Close enough.
So you get maybe 3,300, no, 3,200 damage. So you get slightly more damage, and you get a 3-second cooldown. So you get the area. It's literally just an outright another melee weapon with a slightly better range. Actually, to make it even more funny, we're gonna give it the ×2 that it has in Extreme Versus, so you can have a bit more coverage and range without being a bit too annoying. Which means, by the way, that those can be countered as well. So if it has a long wind-up with its melee, you can counter it out of its wind-up.
I suppose you could do that, yeah.
And finally, the Turn A Gundam Shield. Do we want it on the left arm or on the...
Put it on the back, but yeah, that could be my Gundam versus Gundam next plus brain rot speaking.
I mean, I think, unless I'm remembering wrong, it was almost always depicted on the arm in the series. Like, that seems more organic to me. That and, like, I can say from personal experience how bad it feels to be playing something like the base
350
Gelgoog.
Gelgoog.
Yeah, and have the shield on your back and be like, well, this does me a lot of good. Because if you're getting shot in the back, you're probably dead anyway. Like, it's probably over at that point if it's anything that like staggers or suppresses at all. So I kind of feel like just having it on the arm is the safe bet, especially because like that's such a good shield. Like it's essentially just a Gelgoog shield with more lines in it. Like
with more lines in it. I like
Yeah,
that comparison.
Sid means rolling in his grave.
I'm
I
gonna
mean, it's a
give
good
it.
design.
I'm gonna give it the basic skills that we're looking for always. Again, we've seen it plenty of times. I was looking at the maneuver armor on the top right there. So balancer roll. We're gonna give it a force injector as well. And this time we're gonna give it a bit
Yeah.
of a heftier force injector because you're gonna be needing to move a lot more, thanks to most of your weapons having either a very long cooldown or being melee weapons. High spec comeback, obviously. Nothing too
Of
extreme
course.
here. I'll give it a high performance radar, more for a. If I remember correctly, it was very often depicted with allies. Correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
generally.
So what if we give it an observational data link?
Ah, that
doesn't
could be
sound half
interesting.
bad.
You see,
There's not a lot of generals that's like. There's not a lot of native 4-star, native 700 generals that have observational data link, are there?
no, there is not. And also I'll give it a special leg buffers because those legs, God, they're gonna get shot a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's
I'll
see.
give it an assault booster, that's for sure.
It's not a raid though. Raids only get that skill thus far.
Oh,
they decide to
shame.
start. Unless they start. Although we could give it a quick boost. So we could give
I
it like a quick
think-
boost to level 3.
I think that'd be fine. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it, do the thing where it flies up, basically.
Flap booster, oh, fair enough.
Oh, flat. Now that you think about it, they would fit it like a. That would fit it pretty snugly, honestly.
And now we've already left, if I remember correctly. Let me double check back here. Yeah, we're left with 4 skills once again. So, nanomachines is gonna be the very first skill that I'm gonna give.
Nanomachine, son.
Once per life, right?
Yep.
Heal 3000 health to yourself and repair legs or parts. Sorry, that's it.
Ah,
What-
okay.
It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Nothing too, flashy. Nothing too out of this world. Actually, I'm gonna name it as it was called in the series for my own sake and everyone else's watching. There we go.
It's
None of us
okay.
is really
Repair
good.
parts is just a synonym for repair legs in this game.
Of course.
Yep.
We're gonna have another skill called System Turn A, which was referred to plenty of times, but we never got it. Where at 50% health it gains, stat buff.
What?
So we're gonna give it a +5 movement speed, a +5 HSM, +10 melee and range strength, and a +10 turning rate. Oh, that's right. High performance counter program. So you may be wondering, what do we put on the last skill, right?
Well, I mean, I feel like we had to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the moonlight butterfly. But at the same time, it's like if you bring the moonlight butterfly into the equation, isn't that kind of like bringing the fully awakened unicorn into the equation? Like it's like if the unicorn can't do that, then
The Moonlight
the turn
Butterfly, I
A.
was thinking that it's gonna be kind of like the biosensor of the Zaku 3 custom, where upon death you unleash the Moonlight Butterfly wings, which obviously it is a longer death
Oh,
animation, but you do a 10,000 damage in a small AoE.
that could be kind of cool, yeah.
It doesn't sound bad, yep.
What if you just go full lore accurate, and if you die as the turn A, it just kills everybody on both teams?
That could be
Or,
horrible.
you know what? It also, you could make it so that if like when it dies, it does the AOE, but instead of dealing heavy damage, which you can add the damage as well. But I was thinking that maybe it would put all of the opponent's ranged weapons on cooldown when if
Oh,
they're in a certain radius.
I was
Because
actually thinking about that, yeah.
it's that would be a little similar to the way it's portrayed in, if you recall, the G Generation series, where both the turn A at full power and the turn X have basically a map attack that drains the energy of nearby units.
I think either that or you make everybody's thrusters overheat.
Look at what I have written down. On death, perform a small AoE that forces enemy weapons to jump for 20 seconds in ranged weapons. I should write that down. To jump for 20 seconds in a 150-meter radius. How's
Yeah.
that?
That's good.
That could be good.
And that covers pretty much the units that we had thus far. That, actually, let me look at the time. Oh, we're just barely over an hour and 7 minutes. I mean, I guess we cut off 20 minutes by skipping over the mobile suit stats.
Yep.
But once again, we had pretty complicated units. What are your thoughts on both units, Alter? And then I'm gonna come to you and talk to you as well on that, Sertlade.
Pretty interesting, I think. I definitely wasn't considering the Agu guy style Gundam hammer thing, but I mean, it was shown at one point using 2 Gundam hammers in the series, which I don't think we ever saw with the Grandpa Gundam. Did it even have more than 1 Gundam hammer? I don't think it did.
No, I didn't.
Like, I think technically it's had the one. So, what was I gonna say? So I mean, I guess that's an interesting direction to take it in. I think the double X sounds really flashy. It sounds almost along similar lines to like the High Nu or the. I guess the High Nu isn't quite like the comparison I'm thinking of. I don't know. I'm blanking on
Comparison.
what's analogous to this, but either I think they both sound like they'd be pretty interesting designs if they made it into the game.
Fair enough. Sertlade, if you were to choose between the two, which one do you think that you'd play more?
Well, I tend to stick with a lot of ranged units, surprisingly enough. Though, honestly, I think that I'd probably end up going with double X more often because, I haven't completely gotten the grasp on the proper use of the flap booster. That's for sure.
Understandable.
Oh, yeah,
I
that
think
would be fun.
I think I'd say that I'll use the double X, and then I would just pick the Sazabi at 700 every time anyway.
Yeah, that's
Seems to be how it goes for me.
Yep.
That sounds about right. Well, that I think that brings it to an end for now. That was again fun, to put it lightly. It was great actually being able to put 2 more units into how it we believe would work in GBO2 standards. Those skills, honestly, I think will serve both of them really well. Regardless of
I
that,
agree.
thank you both once again for being here and joining me in another endeavor of my goofy stuff, to put it like that.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
We'll talk to you all later and see you once again on the battlefield.